Okay, so welcome everyone. As usual, it's a bit later than expected, but anyway, we are finally starting. This is the final event for the Sharing Collaboration Cooperation project. I hope some of you already know the project, and anyway, this online event is recorded and streamed on Facebook, so people will be able also to watch it later. The project is an Erasmus Plus project, and I'm gonna introduce it in a minute. The partners are in part present today. Some couldn't make it because it's the 26th of August and most of the people are in places where it's not very easy to participate online. We decided to have this event online because it was too complicated to host an international event here in Brussels as it was planned at the beginning. The event itself is part of the dissemination for this project, because all Erasmus Plus projects have a communication side, so we try to make it as well known as possible. So without much further ado, we can get into this morning session. We will have this morning until 12. Then in the afternoon we will restart at 2. So until 12:30 this morning, and we will restart in the afternoon 2 to 4 for the second session. Originally, this final event was planned to be much more interactive, but the format limits us in a way. So anyway, for the afternoon, we planned to have more discussion and also a Q&A section if the audience will have questions to ask. So here's the plan for the morning. First, I'm going to present the project itself with the motivations that led us to apply for the European funding. Then which activities we had in the project and the outputs. Then Dario, that is with us from Florence in Italy, is going to present the Caracal Toolkit. We already presented it in an online event in June, and it was also used and presented locally in the local events that we will speak later. So we will have this moment for the local events report. We have Francois Dubois from Febecop here in Belgium that will talk about the event in Liège yesterday. And hopefully we will also have participation from Tata Box, which is an associated partner in Genoa, Italy, that managed the local event there together with Condiviso, our partner there. And then we will also have reports on Spain and France if they manage to join us, or otherwise it will be in the afternoon. Then we planned to have an intervention by the University of Genoa on the connection between education and collaborative spaces, but unfortunately the person that should have joined us couldn't participate, so we will skip that. So let's start with the presentation of the project. The SCC Erasmus Plus project was developed as an Erasmus Plus strategic partnership. We aimed to unite together in a partnership co-working spaces, higher education institutions, innovation communities, international networks, and umbrella organizations. So essentially the groups that actually then built the project. And the general objective was to stimulate the development of collaborative spaces for innovation and anticipating the transition to a digital society. As you can see, the words we used come from the time when we wrote the project. So this project started before the pandemic, and it was in a way written in a different era. So we will see more about that in this afternoon when we talk about the final recommendations that we're formulating based on the project and on the observations we had. But the project itself follows a process that started in 2017 when we launched a vision paper that is titled "The Cooperative Vision for the Collaborative Economy." This vision paper is available on Cooperatives Europe website. It was developed in close collaboration with the Lama, a cooperative from Italy that is also partner here in SCC, and that was the coordinator for the development of our toolkit, the Caracal Toolkit. And Dario is a representative of Lama. So that paper we presented in 2017 was intended as a position paper as a vision paper to complement what at the time the European Parliament was discussing. So the value of the social economy, of the collaborative economy. So there was a resolution presented by the Parliament in June 2017 titled European Agenda for the Collaborative Economy, and we wanted to give a cooperative vision to it. So the first thing was that the collaborative economy wasn't really defined. It was mentioned, and there was a lot of discussion around it, especially around the digital platforms connected to collaboration, but there wasn't a clear definition. So what we did with that vision paper was also to adopt a definition for the collaborative economy. And for SCC project, we are using that definition as a base. You can find it on the website. I can also read it. It's a bit long. So for collaborative economy, the term collaborative economy refers to a broad and varied group of practices and innovative models that use digital technologies to facilitate collaboration and exchange among a community of peers and to maximize the use of underutilized resources. Collaborative economy models enable the aggregation of peer-to-peer exchanges performed among community members and turn them into systemic processes of value generation driven by the community and benefiting the community. So we focused mostly on three aspects of this field: the peer-to-peer aspect of the collaborative economy, the use of digital technologies, and the fact that collaborative economy is deeply rooted into the community it is animated from. So the fact that the emphasis was put on digital technologies led us to think also what else was there, especially for a cooperative vision. So when we started to build, to write the and design the SCC project, we wanted to put the focus not only on what happens online with the digital platforms, but also what happens in the communities that then build the innovation. So we decided to get together organizations that were involved in collaborative spaces or in distributed communities that had in the collaborative spaces their headquarters or anyway their place of share. So we built this partnership. The objectives of the project, which are still valid, were to support the transformation of co-working spaces into collaborative spaces, because we will talk more about it later, but we wanted to build an idea of collaborative space that is larger than what just a co-working space is. Also because the movement of co-workings that started around 2005 went directly from a more auto-organized kind of spaces to the big real estate market. So now the trend for many of the co-working spaces is on franchising and real estate investment, and this is not really the aspect we are most interested in. We are more interested in the community. So the creation of collaborative spaces and the evolution of co-working spaces into collaborative spaces is still one of the priorities. Promote the creation and systematization of the workflow between co-working spaces, higher education institutions, which means universities, training centers, and similar institutions, and the innovation community. So in this case, we wanted to build bridges essentially, and we think that with especially with the first two researches that we published, we think that we at least built the foundation for those bridges. And then develop methodologies for organizing educational partnerships, transsectoral, incorporating transnational cooperation and international mobility. So this third objective, taking aside all the technical slang that it includes, essentially means to build tools that can help the collaboration between different actors, especially internationally. One of the ideas that this project started from was the building a network of collaborative spaces around Europe. There were already some experiences from 2015 and 2016 of tries, but there wasn't funding and there wasn't the necessary support. So we thought that SCC could also be the right place to start this. The partners involved are those you see on the screen. We share is a network of freelancers and a distributed community that has different groups in various countries, especially in France and in Canada. We as Cooperatives Europe are the representative organization for cooperatives all over Europe. The Mondragon University is a cooperative university from the north of Spain, from the Basque Country. FEBECOOP here in Belgium is a federation, a supporting structure for cooperatives in the country. LAMA, as I said before, is a cooperative from Italy that was the founder of Impact Hub in Florence. So they have experience in the co-working and collaborative space world, and they also do research and focus on urban regeneration. Condiviso is a cooperative from Genoa in Italy that does communication graphics, but they also are a co-working space. So Condiviso physically has been built as a cooperative inside a collaborative space. TASBAES is that red logo you see on the bottom is a T and a Z, very synthetic. They are a cooperative that was born inside the Mondragon Team Academy, and they are still collaborating with the University of Mondragon. And Espace, last partner on the bottom right, is cooperative, collaborative space in Paris, funded by a cooperative of students that now evolved into essentially a platform for the social economy, and their co-working and collaborative space is the basis for many initiatives in the social economy in the area. So the project was built also to have what are called intellectual outputs, so to publish material, documents, research, and the toolkit. We did the first part of our work for the outputs before the pandemic hit, and it was a research on best practices on collaborative spaces. The interesting part, you can find all of this material on our website. The first research, it was conducted to try and understand the field we are talking about. So we tried to define what are the best practices and how the collaborative spaces and many co-working spaces are managed internally, and how they involve the community. So the fact that some spaces are more collaborative or less, it was analyzed, and so we in the end we managed to define our own vision of what a collaborative space is. And for this research, we interviewed a good number of groups around Europe, especially in the countries where the partners are, but also outside. Then the second output is a map. The map itself is available on the website, and it is accompanied by the research. In this case, we were trying to understand what's the situation regarding the connection between higher education programs, mostly university programs, and co-working spaces or collaborative spaces, and how this kind of environment and setting is used for education and training. In this case, we did mostly desktop research, so we tried to find published information on these different settings. There are definitely other cases around the world, so the map is going to be a living document, and we are going to update it as much as possible also in the future. Then we have the Caracal Toolkit, which is really the heart of the project, is what we developed as the tool to support those that are managing their community in a collaborative way or want to set up a new community in a collaborative way. It is divided in 4 sections. It includes a lot of tools, and it's called Caracal because it makes sense. So you see that there is a subtitle: Community Aware Research and Action Toolkit for Collaborative Learning. So that becomes Caracal as an acronym, but it also has another meaning, and Dario will tell you about it. Then in the coming days, we are nearly there, we will publish the final report of the project, and this is a paper that was designed in 2018. So the expectations we had for the kind of policy recommendations and the kind of information that would have been included are not what we understood were relevant after the pandemic started. So this afternoon, I will present you some extract of this document and some of the policy recommendations, and I will explain how our vision shifted from what was thought at the beginning to what the reflections at the moment are. Then I can just give you a little more information and then we can go on. So the SCC project, as I said, is an Erasmus Plus project. So we had 2 training activities. We were lucky enough to have those activities before the pandemic started. So the first one was in Bilbao in the Basque Country. We visited the facilities of the Mondragon Team Academy, this course that is managed by the University of Mondragon and includes a lot of collaborative activities, and it is hosted physically in a big collaborative space where each floor is occupied by different people that interact with each other. And also the students are encouraged to collaborate as much as possible, and they have a very flexible setting, and it was very interesting. And we worked on the mapping and the interaction between university and collaborative spaces, but in particular in that training activity. Then the next one was hosted in Florence just before we all started to stay home more than expected. And the workshop was very interesting for us because it gave us the opportunity to be more interactive and start to develop what later became the Caracal Toolkit. The toolkit is based on co-design principles, and the nice thing is that we used co-design to develop it. So it is mostly an interactive document with a lot of sections. So I invite you not only to listen to Dario's presentation, but also to visit our scc.coop website later and try it. Then that comes to the multiplier events. We had 4 countries involved in the project in terms of local multipliers. The events that already took place were in Genoa in June. Then we had Paris and Liège just this week, so France and Belgium. And the event in Spain was postponed, so we are going to have it during this weekend that is coming. all of these events were a mix of meeting with the local community and experimenting with the Caracal Toolkit, which is modular enough to allow to pick the right part that is needed for your activity. Then this leads to the event of today. You have to know that we planned for a final event live here in Brussels when we designed the project, but even if we tried to organize it, we then realized that it wasn't really possible for international travel to have an audience, so we could probably just have the panelists here in Brussels, but that would have been an online event anyway, so we thought it was more responsible to avoid to move all these people. But since the project was suspended for a while at the beginning of the year, when we restarted working on the project, we decided to have a webinar in June, and there was a good reaction to that. So we hope that also this online event will attract some attention, not only of the public that is with us today, but also other people that will be able to follow the content, to have access to the content, rewatching the video later. So wait, this is for the afternoon session. So coming back to the program for today, I hope my explanations were clear enough. I can give the floor to Dario for the presentation of the Caracal Toolkit. Let me just get his presentation on screen. Okay. First of all, welcome.
Hi, and thanks, Lorenzo, for introducing all the work that has been done in these years, and to all participants, both on Facebook and on Zoom, being here today. So I don't know if you can share the presentation.
Yes, I'm opening it on my computer and I'm sharing. Okay, so I just have to take out mine. Sorry for being slow, but it's just coming back to work just last week, so it's still a bit rusty. So wait, it's called yes, SCC, communication and dissemination. Okay, here it is. Presentazione. Nope. Wait, I have the other version. Okay. Full screen and share. Share. Are you seeing it?
Yes, I see it. Thanks a lot. Thanks again, Lorenzo. So taking back from where you ended, let's say talking about the Caracal Toolkit, let's say that the tool has been somehow the final step of our work before the pandemic started, okay, because we had the workshop at the beginning of January 2020, okay, which seems a life ago. However, the toolkit is still relevant, in our opinion, because it somehow collects and has been based on the experience, first of all, of the consortium partners, okay, which represents, let's say, some innovative and collaborative words, okay, in different countries related to co-working, collaborative practices, and collaborative training, okay, of course, it has been based also, as you said, on a wide set of interviews run in the research process, okay, and in the mapping process. So we didn't just harvest in our own basket of knowledge, okay, but somehow we tried to understand what was happening outside the consortium with some partners of our wider network. So this happened through interviews with practitioners aimed at not only at understanding the good practices, but also at defining what were the commonalities of their approaches in building collaborative spaces and animating collaborative spaces. So let's say the theme, as you also said, Lorenzo, before, is very wide. Okay, so collaboration can be interpreted in many different ways, but our focus has mainly been on cooperatives and on academic institutions. Okay, so of course, the idea was to understand which social businesses, cooperatives, organization in general opened up their spaces and engaged other actors such as citizens, associations, even the academy world, okay, in their programming, training, and I would say even service offer, okay. And on the other hand, we were interested in understanding how academic institutions built spaces, not only physical spaces, but of course also physical spaces, okay, but let's say spaces for interaction with other actors of the quadruple helix to answer to social challenges and to, let's say, even I would say to understand what were some of the challenges of other actors and how to answer to that. Okay, so there are many of the organization we mapped that are doing this on a daily basis, okay, and in very different ways. Then, moreover, we might say, being this an Erasmus project, that the academic world is characterized by the so-called third mission. Okay, so the idea is to try to share knowledge, the university to share knowledge with citizenship, and also to focus on adult lifelong learning. So this third mission is always challenging for universities, and somehow the collaborative approach might help also reaching, I will say, audiences, publics, and groups that normally are not that easy to reach with the traditional training offer of universities. So let's say, you can see we mapped and engaged very different organizations, but the commonalities we found helps us tracing a path to follow in opening up spaces in a community aware, as the Caracal acronym says, approach. So some aspects are, I will say, in any case, always important to take care of when building collaborative experiences. And many of these aspects have been widely studied from in the systemic design field and in the practical experience of co-working spaces and cooperatives, okay, with very powerful examples to offer. Moreover, in the academy world, there are challenge-based and open academic trainings like Mondragon University One. Mondragon, as you said, Lorenzo, is one of the partners of the consortium. And also the Mondragon experience comes from the Team Academia, the Finnish Team Academy experience of the 90s and of the years zero, okay? And the approach that somehow built cooperative experiences and challenge-based entrepreneurial experiments, okay, paved the way to define how somehow collaborative and informal, non-formal, open trainings can be developed at the university level. So this is just to say we are not inventing the wheel. We don't start from zero. We try to collect something that has been there and evolved widely in the last, I would say, 20 to 30 years. Okay, so even if it's a niche, of course, but it's a niche that is growingly relevant, and that is now adopted also by more big organizations and the public sector. So just to end the introduction, okay, let's say with all this information in mind, we worked, as I said, intensively in 2 days with all the consortium partners, developing a collection of very practical tools and indication, which might be navigated online on the SCC site and can be checked by a user more time during a community engagement process. So in the toolkit, you can find very different solutions and tools to run a wide set of activities, from community engagement to aligning to strategies, tools. Okay, so there are, I would say, around 80 tools in this box that are linked, okay, and where original sites are referenced under a common narrative. And so, of course, all these tools do not need to be used all one after the others. Okay, it would be too much maybe, okay, but it is more like a modular approach, as Lorenzo also was saying before, where there are many solutions, even alternative solutions for different kind of purposes. Okay, so as written in this slide, the toolkit is a one-stop shop for what we might call catalyst agents, okay, of collaborative experiences that want to involve different kind of actors, setting up or creating collaborative spaces, and opening up their training to other actors. So you can use it as a guide. You can use it as a checklist, really, to follow during the community engagement. And as you will see at the end, the Canva, the printable Canva, is somehow also to be used as a checklist, as a note-taking space. And it can be used as a, I would say, bibliothèque of open tools that can be used for different activities. So the toolkit is structured in 4 sections. Okay, so we imagine to have that there are 4 pillars you can look at when building a collaborative space or opening a collaborative training. And basically these are community building, the space building itself, services that the space can host, okay, and training building, okay, and this is maybe more related to academic institutions, but however also co-working space are growingly offering some training for their members and participants, so this is relevant for co-working spaces too. Okay, so it's not strictly related only to academy. So let's go very quickly more in depth on each one of these steps. So we start from the first one, okay, which is building a community, okay, and yeah, let's say this is the first step to be worked when running a collaborative experience. Without a community, an initiative just cannot have success. Okay, so it's very important for the catalyst agents, or the organizers of an initiative, to understand who are their first followers and how to nurture them, okay, in an active way. So the idea here is to grow a community of committed actors. And let's say, in order to do this, we follow these three phases that come in every, let's say, pillar of the toolkit, that are understand, interact, and organize. So first of all, trying to really map out the situation, okay, and setting a preliminary vision, okay, with a context analysis. And secondly, to really interact with the communities, okay, with these first followers, as we call them, okay, and so identifying what are their needs, their expectations, and somehow their validation also of the initial vision of the core group, organizing group. And then, of course, reinforcing the vision, okay, because the opening gap of collaborative experience in startup phase to a first inner circle of participants also somehow enriches the original vision and slightly changes it. In our experience in Impact Hub Florence opened in 2014, but the meeting with the communities that were the first, I would say, inhabitants of the co-working space started at the beginning of 2013. So there has been a full year of meetings with, I would say, future members to understand what were their expectations, what they wanted from the space, how they wanted to use the space, how they would have been contributing to the space and its offer. So really, the idea was, we haven't built it our own, but I would say there was a small, not that small in the end, group of organization and people, around 30, 40 people, okay, that somehow helped us, the core team, starting it up with their participation. And then in few years, we became a community in Florence of around 200 co-workers coming to work every day in the space. Okay, so it is to say that even the design of what was offered in Impact Hub wouldn't have been the same without this first community engagement that was there even before the space was there. Okay, so this interaction helped us get into also the organization. Okay, so the definition of roles and functions, the definition of the impact we wanted to reach within the community, and of course the planning, the management, and the strategy setting. So as you can see here, let's say we have some, you see the bold, the writings in bold here in this page. Basically, all of these are open tools. Okay, so all knowledge that has been structured and used, and that is not paywalled. Most important, you know, the point is that there are many different tools prepared by other organizations. Most of them are in English. And yeah, of course, we don't have time to thank all the organizations who created them, but they are all linked. So even for following up, you can contact them directly, okay, on their site. So there are also, I will say, not only knowledge resources, but also knowledge persons, knowledge organization you can contact if you want to follow up on those tools, on how to use those tools. As I said, some of the resources come from the cooperative movement and are related to cooperatives, but not exclusively, okay, because we wanted somehow a larger set of experiences to be collected there. Oh, you don't see it from the slide, but for every one of these pillars, we also have indications on transversal dimensions, communication, business model, governance, and legal form. And this comes from our more direct experience as a consortium. Okay, so the point really there is to have some check points to really look at when organizing each of these steps. Okay, so especially regarding business model, communication, and governance, these are more maybe universal, while on the legal form, of course, it depends a lot on local contexts. Okay, then maybe Lorenzo, if you can skip to the second pillar. Yeah, thanks. So from space to place. Okay, so here we somehow took the words from the service and the system designer Ezio Manzini, where he defines a place, okay, as something related to the identity and the perceived ownership by people and communities using and living it. Okay, so of course, again, a space can be a building, a place is a building with meaning, okay, in other words, and with shared meaning. So I already talked about our experience in Impact Hub, but also Thais Baez, L'Espace, Febecop have similar somehow experiences, Indiviso have similar experiences, so have a community that owns, even if not maybe legally, but I will say in terms of practice, owns the space and feel it its own space, okay? But this doesn't happen just, I would say randomly, okay? But it happens from a study, okay? So from the understanding of what the features that shape the space, okay? And where the space is located, it's also matters a lot. And also on the how, okay? So somehow how the vision is just translated in physical elements, okay? Yeah, setting up the space. And then, of course, there are several ways a space can be tested through interaction, okay, with stakeholders, but also through somehow an analysis of what can and cannot be done with different kind of buildings and in different kind of zones, okay. And again, after the interaction, we have the organization, meaning that in the space governance, there are several actors that can define the role, can define their role in the space. And so, just as an example, many co-working and collaborative space have some commons, okay, some commonality, some common elements that are managed by the wider community. We can make many examples, but like community gardening example, okay, which is a way to build a space in a collaborative manner and creating really this sense of ownership around the space. But more in general and more related maybe to the topic of this project, also the training offer itself can be organized in a way that gives a role to the inhabitants and the communities interacting with the space. Okay, so again, just as an example, there are many collaborative spaces that have a training offer that is built by the community itself for people and organization coming from outside that community. Okay, so that is, for example, a very powerful way to pass from a community of practice to a community of knowledge, in other words, okay, and opening up this community to external so that the community becomes wider and wider and also is recognized within knowledge networks, okay. Another example of organization of space can be all those spaces that somehow try to offer services involving the community in the offering of these services. Okay, so somehow are all those co-working and cooperatives that also give the opportunity to members to organize their work in a collaborative manner toward external clients. Like Condiviso is a great example of that somehow, okay? So, I mean, examples might be many, but it's just to say when setting up the space, the organization is not just about what we do offer to the community, but most importantly, what the community can offer, okay? And how the community is organized to manage, to co-manage some aspects of the space. Yeah. Maybe we go to the third pillar that is strictly related to this one, in fact, and is the service and interior design. Okay, so of course, and maybe this is more obvious, but it's important to say the design of a space and the services it offers, they contribute to the identity of the space and to the development of a shared culture. Okay. So the point is which kind of services can facilitate the creation of collaborative dynamics among its members. Okay, this is there are many examples here. Okay, so really not only in understanding how the value proposition of a space answers to the needs and expectation of participants to that space and members, but also how, let's say, these services can be tested and co-designed really with practical workshop with a community and then organized, of course. The offer of, let's say, services is very important on an horizontal way, because services can be more engaging or less engaging for communities, again, okay? So this is related to what I was saying before regarding spaces, but also in a vertical sense, meaning that there is an offer that creates an added value for participants and for members of a collaborative space, or even for students in an academic training, and that basically make the difference. Just to make a very obvious, maybe not that obvious in the end, example. 1.5 years ago, okay, COVID disrupted the world we were living in, and particularly disrupted co-working. Okay, so COVID seemed to really end the sharing, the space of sharing. Okay, but in reality, what happened is that those organized spaces that granted safety for the opening, or even basic services like cleaning or having procedures, knowing who was entering in the space, so somehow giving the possibility of having somehow safety to small companies and to individual workers proved to be an added value for those companies who could not afford to manage this kind of elements on their own. So even something very obvious like safety and cleaning became an added value that attracted new actors and unexpected actors. Okay, so again, the definition of service and of really the design of services related to space is central, and it can be done in a way to really nurture collaboration and participation. So here there are many tools for this. But last but not least, of course, we focus on, as I was saying at the beginning, knowledge, skills, and experience. So how to build, how this kind of collaborative experience become spaces where learning is possible, okay? So we're talking about not only formal learning, but most importantly, informal and non-formal learning, and the creation of communities of knowledge, as I was saying before. So, for example, in academia, there are many spaces that are underutilized or that somehow be built in a way to open up participation to other actors external to universities, like practitioners, alumni, small companies, social enterprises, and more in general, people bearing the experience and the practice from the work environment, which is very needed, okay, and that might also enhance soft and practical skills in students, in example. So, well, Mondragon again is a great example of how to do that. Okay, so just have a look at the Mondragon Team Academy program, which is great in doing that. But let's say that there are some steps that also are common not only in the Team Academy approach, but also in other university approach that opened up collaborative spaces, such as maker spaces, in example. Okay, there are many universities that have maker spaces that are open to communities that are not strictly only students communities or PhD communities, and that are creating, I will say, hybrid models of training that are very interesting and innovative in this sense. Of course, there are all tools for identifying your target group and the offer, the training offer, okay, and the needs you want to answer to. But then somehow there is all an interaction and a co-design of the training contents and goal with this community again, okay, and the approach of training, okay. So regarding also the level of formality of the training, the competencies you want to build and recognize with the training, and how these competencies are evaluated and recognized more or less formally, okay. So there are very interesting experiments with the open badges system, for example, here. That are some of the tools you can look at, and somehow are some first attempts to recognize skills and competencies in new and open ways, okay, that are not strictly the formal recognition system, but something that integrates that system, I would say. So again, yeah, I won't talk more also because I think I'm running out of time, but it's just to say there are many tools to build a knowledge and yeah, training related to informal and formal knowledge that can be used here. So just have a look. Yeah, thank you. And the last slide, just if you want to show it to Lorenzo. It's an example of the toolkit Canva. Okay, so again, yeah, clicking on that link, you can see that we prepare something for the offline world. Okay, so something you can print and have behind you in your office or in your room to really check how you are following those steps to build a collaborative experience and space. So yeah, I think that can also be something useful. Yeah, thank you, Lorenzo. Okay, you can see also why is Caracal. Okay, Caracal is a Spanish word for slug. Okay, or escargot français. So yeah, the shape is that of a slug, and somehow this also inspired us in calling it Caracal, apart from the acronym.
Yeah,
so
it's nice to know that we have one of these designs for each of the sections.
Yeah.
So you can summarize visually what your work that you're doing, and it's interesting that somehow graphically it really recalls what we have, the division in sections, but without being a square. So in a way, it represents the projects also. It's more flexible than just the usual grid.
Exactly, that was the intention. And let's say, of course, these are four because, as you were saying in the introduction, I will close with this, not all four pillars are needed in many cases. So likely if a university wants to focus on its training offering, innovating it will work most on the fourth pillar, for example. Okay, so maybe it's just they will focus more and will use just that Canva. Okay, so the idea is you can use it separately and it's very modular.
Yeah, what I really like about the Caracal Toolkit is that there is always an needs analysis step, which is something that we emphasize a lot, because as you were saying before, if the community is a truly collaborative community, the goal is not to sell services, it's more to respond to the needs. So also the way that the community grows is aggregating people that want answers to the same kind of needs. So they start from themselves, but in a way or another get to the community because they want answers to their needs. And then they realize that there are other like-minded people, they can collaborate, but at the same time, there are also maybe services or other initiatives that answer to the same kind of needs, even in those that in some cases they didn't perceive yet. Then they create this good circle of sharing where you bring something but also get something else, and this goes full circle to the mutuality principle of cooperatives. So why we're here.
Yes, thank you, Lorenzo. I wouldn't have found better closing to the presentation. Okay, so thanks for this. And yeah, of course, as the mapping, also the toolkit likely will be updated in the next years and months. Okay, also because maybe some new resources will be found, or some other links. This happens on the internet. Okay, maybe will be outdated or corrupted. So we need also to somehow update the contents there. But let's say the main structure is there. All the links are working at the moment, and it's very useful. So whoever looks at this video, I hope this introduced the toolkit and it can be useful. And finally, we have let's say a small evaluation form on the site. So who uses it can also give us a feedback, and likely we can improve also the toolkit in the next years, looking at that feedback. So please tell us if it was useful, if you use it.
Yeah, and as you probably understood, all the images that Dario showed come from our website. So everything you see is clickable and interactive. So it works a bit like magic, and you go from one page to another, and this kind of it's going around one topic to another also give you the sense of how a community is built, how a space is designed. So it is also interesting to be browsed, even if you are not using it for your local community yet, but just to get familiar with the tool. Then thanks a lot, Dario. It was exhaustive and interesting, and also a good reminder for us that participated of what we have there, because it's very vast. So now we have the last part of the morning. We have with us Alba from Tata Box. So I will start with her because the event organized by Condiviso in Genoa was in collaboration with Tata Box, that is a associated partner of this project. And they are a very interesting collaborative space there. So Alba, thanks for being with us. And if you want to introduce who you are and how Tata Box works, that's the right moment.
Thank you, Lorenzo. Good morning, everybody. When Condiviso actually asked us to take part and collaborate as partner to the project, it was really interesting because it actually was a moment of thinking and then maybe getting something concrete done in a kind of reality that is not so common, at least here in Genoa, when you talk about students, because our reality, so Tata Box, is actually, let's call it a co-studying. So when people meet just to study and to share a place where can get focused and can get their exams done, actually. So it's not as, you can say, as compulsory as a working space, but the need that we found out that student has were as urgent as the needs of a knowledge basis worker. Tatabox was built, let's say, in 2016, and I'm using build because we already did all the parts that the Caracal Toolkit introduced about the designing the space. So our space had specifics, things that actually are linked to Tatabox as a reality, and that our students actually recognize as part of the sharing space and work position, let's say. Our students are moreover from the university part of study, let's say, but we also have some younger people coming from high school or even middle school, but very few, so it's just like more the exception than the ordinary. Our students are from generally we collect med students, law students, people studying economics, so in any kind of field, and in engineering. So actually we can target our community like hard students, because generally the kind of study that they have to do is requires a kind of performing that it's very, very heavy. They have exams and let's say a quantity of study that actually we can say maybe meets the standards required for a knowledge worker. So they have to dedicate a lot of hours in a deep and focused status of mind to really perform well. Just to summarize what we are actually trying to do is that people would study anyway, because every kind of student graduated even without Tatabox, but from a thesis that a girl asked us to conduct on our reality, the final result of the study that she just like moved on was that people probably would give the normal kind of student would give the same amount of exams studying at home or studying in Tatabox. But the less motivated students studying in Tatabox were able to give more exams if compared to the number they would have given if staying at home. So probably.
So you have scientific validation for the power of community.
More or less, let's say, scientific validation of that. But what we noticed is that inside, different from a co-working where people are just like involved in a process that is completely different, study generally is an isolation activity. We found out that having a very community, people started interacting among themselves, asking for help in fields they needed support or they feel they lack of knowledge, and spontaneous groups of helping each other, but also creating, let's say, sort of a friendship, but connection, just like sprang without even us having to intervene.
Okay.
So it's a very spontaneous environment where collaboration and cooperation, but also sharing, get the value of why you come here. Sorry, I forgot to mention that you pay a fee to enter Tatabox. So it's a very insignificant amount of money, but actually from the study that we conducted, it shows that the fact that you pay for something that it's yours then, because you have the right in a certain way to use it, you value your time and your relationship inside the building or inside the space more. So you consider your experience more valuable instead of something that you can do in your own space at home, free of whatever constriction we might have.
So the members of your community are subscribers in Tatabox.
Yes, they subscribing is actually free, so you can subscribe in any way,
okay,
and time and without any fee. But entering, so exploiting, let's say,
so the use of the services and the space.
Yes, that's what you pay, because actually inside you have free Wi-Fi, you can find any kind of need that you may need, a pen, you may need a snack, you may need whatever, and inside the place it's everything organized to help you forget all the other duties that you have to do.
Okay.
Your main focus should be studying. So you can arrive and you have your position designed to just think about what you have to study,
Okay.
and no distractions.
So for the event in general, you were involved by Condiviso, but then you designed the event together and you involved your own community. So what was the profile of the participants?
We tried to having already a community, we tried to take people from the different kind of university we had. So we tried to create a more heterogeneous group coming from different fields, so that can have different expectations and needs, in order to see if the needs perceived or felt were more or less, let's say, shareable. So according to the different fields of university they had, their needs of sharing and collaboration can be sort of grouped in macro areas and be actually shareable.
Okay. So I imagine that given the transitory condition of being a student, those that are in the community now are not the same that you based the design of the space on at the beginning.
No,
not everyone, at least.
The fact that university spans over years, and some students are in the first year or in the third year. So generally, also, if they finished, we can say, the studying part, so the big amount of exams they have to do, generally they spend time here to write their thesis, so the final dissertation, or to start finding the jobs or studying for exams they need for the specificity of their jobs, or architects, lawyers, and so on. They have in Italy, they have the national exam to do to just become officially engineers or lawyers. So they keep staying here to study, because that's actually what they do, to study for the next step.
Okay.
So yes, more or less the community was the same.
And so this experience of getting people into groups and use the tools, what did you get out of it?
So we more or less, as Dario was saying before, we didn't need to use all the tools because the community was already quite strong. So we were impressed by the strength that our community and the links inside the different groups was actually very performing, let's say. So we started from the last pillar, so the fourth, and the knowledge part, and we asked them to sort of redesign a persona. So just like not figuring out themselves, because it's too distracting, let's say. So they had to figure out a persona that can need the kind of space and place they find in Tata Box, and so their background, and as a kind of the classic rule of building up a persona. And they find it difficult, but they were really sharp. I don't know, it was interesting to see how they was really performing good, because having in a sort of way just like experienced the living of a shared space and shared community, they were quite wit in understanding what may be the needs that actually, without thinking, Tata Box was already answering. And so we built more or less the personas that they wanted to see inside Tata Box, and why. And also the design of the persona was very different, but in a sort of way very similar. So having two heterogeneous groups, so trying to differentiate the groups for the backgrounds of the university, but also for their personals, so their personalities, because we really get to know very well all the students. We call them by name, we know how exams they pass, how their mother is, and what are their pets. So having this kind of confidence, so of this close relationship, we could build also with the help of students from psychology and of the University of Genova that were inside the project. We were able to create groups that actually had different kind of characteristics and skills. But the match, so what emerged actually in the personas and in the services that they built was very similar. So we had the possibility to understand that the biggest part of the sharing space and a kind of collaborative habitat that we are talking about was responding to more deeper needs. So hard work, let's say, so the hardware of the studying, of working, of what you have to do in your daily basis, it's sort of, let's say, obvious. I don't know, maybe obvious is not the right word, but this is the standard.
Yeah, so
it's
clear from the beginning.
Yes, so I joined these kind of spaces, co-working, co-studying, collaborative sharing also in the university, because I know that they respond to my hard need.
Mm-hmm.
What we found interesting, and they found interesting too in building the services, was actually a more sense of link, of network. Because what emerged was actually, it was surprising, because some of the services they produced in the output, in the final output, was some services that we already planned. So we are already working on.
Okay.
And actually, one of the services that they asked, we just like delivered it 2 weeks later, because we were already working on that months before.
So now I'm curious, what service?
It's a sort of a psychological support.
Okay.
Because generally, for example, we always have the standard image of a classic university in America, so in the US, when you have the psychologist of the school, when you go and you get your travel and stuff and things done. Yeah. And we're already working with a counselor for this kind of service, because psychology is something very deep and very profound that has to be done by a professional, by a psychologist. But the kind of help sometimes they perceive that they need is generally more light, let's say. So a counselor, we found out, could be the best person to maybe I don't know, solve, let's say, or help them get through some of the most critical aspects of the university lifestyle. Maybe, I don't know, facing problem of lack of concentration, blocks in some exams. And this was the kind of problems of target that we needed to understand, and also for them to understand that asking for help in a safe environment could be a good step.
Okay, so you were already planning to develop this kind of service, and you validated the idea because your community using the tools.
We never talked to our community before of what we were planning. So when it emerged and we were about a month to just like deliver, it was surprising, because it means that if you can read correctly your community, you have the answers for the services.
Yeah, no, but probably it's a clear example of a healthy community.
Yes.
If you know how it's going, and if those that have the role of catalyst are actually catalyzing the needs, it's a great news.
I can give you another example that it's let's say sort of the opposite. We were planning to organize study tours, but in the mountains. So collaborating with other cooperatives, Lorenzo, as you know, Mendatica.
Yeah.
We were planning to go there.
Community cooperative in the Sea Alps in Liguria.
So we were thinking about going into the woods, let's say, to create a new studying experience. Okay, so just like take it as a vacation, but it's a student vacation where you can go and have peace in the wood, relaxing to study, and then having
So
your
sort of study retreats in the countryside.
exactly
Okay.
study retreats. What we discovered in the event, so with the guys that actually were providing new services they would like to have, the vacation actually came out. So we were just like, perfect. But they didn't want to study in vacation.
Ah, okay.
They wanted to go on a vacation with the people they actually shared the place they're studying.
Okay. So you were focusing on the usual study service and they wanted to take a break.
So we felt that for them it was more urgent to find some free space, some spare space to use with their companions, let's say, because they were sharing the same, they were studying different things, but they were sharing the same stress and they were sharing the same experience. So they wanted time to build and get closer to their peers.
Okay. So you went from like study retreat to more like team building and community holiday.
This
Nice.
was surprising actually, because we didn't expect that to happen, because our place is really performing.
Yeah.
So we have to just like shift it on a leisure place where to study or a performing place where to study. We are just like actually in the performing part. So we didn't expect people to be so focused in the results of what they have to do, being also so so eager to spend their
They also need an outlet for stress.
with the same persons.
Yeah.
Like
no, but it's nice to know that you could have both. So using the tools, you managed to validate an existing idea and also to solve a possible issue, because if you invested in study retreats that weren't popular, that wouldn't be a good idea either for you or for the other co-op that is partnering with you. So avoid the failure of a product. It's great news, and it opens another opportunity on the other side. So now that's very nice. I'm happy for your recount, because it's great to know that a local event, it's not only promoting the project but is actually helping the community. As a last note, do you think you're going to have a follow-up of this? Are you planning to use other parts of the toolkit in your community life?
I think we will use this toolkit more often, because what we saw from the people actually using this as the response we had from our community in something that was external to their duties was actually amazing. So they showed us that being a close community and a very strong community also involved them in some extra curricular, let's say, activities. So if they perceive something that is useful and that is in need for the space and the place to stay healthier and to grow, they find time and space to fit in and to, let's say, give their contribution to implementing the space and the kind of experience. So they were really happy. We were really happy. Actually, happy, it's not the kind of verb that
but
this kind
it
of
was a satisfying experience.
Yes, and they actually ended satisfied of what they were able to do.
Okay.
Because
and the collaboration with your local university that was involved also in the workshop, did it work? Do you think this will foster more relations with the university?
We hope, because actually having partnership with the local universities is very complicated, but to perform the group better, so also to divide and create the groups, the two girls that was helping us from the psychology University of Genoa were actually, I can say, fundamental.
Okay.
Because we we knew our students, because we know our community, but having an expert always redirecting you in your choice and helping you build something meaningful. So with a deeper work behind, so that the result could be more valuable, it's fundamental.
Okay,
Fundamental.
great.
Right. Very good.
Thank you very much for being
You're
with
welcome.
us. So thanks again.
You're
And
welcome.
now
Thank you for providing all this kind of experience.
it took some time, but we are finally at the end of the project, and I hope there will be a lot of afterlife for all the tools.
I plan to get my graduation dissertation on that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I have the meeting with the professor the 1st of September to present her the project and see.
Oh, that's super cool. Keep us updated on how it goes.
Of course.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
So the next person to talk that I will invite to talk is François from FEBECOP Wallonie-Bruxelles. We had the event, the local event in Liège yesterday. It was very interesting. I was able to be there because fortunately that's just a domestic travel. So François, if you can introduce your organization and present us with what happened yesterday, then I'll ask you a couple of questions later. I can put your presentation up if you want. Yeah.
My microphone was switched off, but no, it's okay. Can you put my presentation?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Tell me when I have to change the slides.
Yes, okay. So yes, no, just one thing. I have to apologize because some of the slides are in French because I received them this morning only from our partners we visited yesterday, and the format image does not allow for any changes. So my apologies. So yesterday we have organized two things. The first thing is one visit of the Comptoir des Ressources Créatives in Liège, and second part was a more workshop based on our experience on Caracal toolkit with some collaborative spaces project. We were more or less 15, 16 people. There were spaces, existing spaces or spaces under construction, collaborative spaces mainly dedicated to specific sectoral activities. For example, co-working space dedicated to tiny houses construction, audiovisual and media, cinema also, food transformation, food processing, craft. And so about the space we have visited, le Comptoir des Ressources Créatives, Lorenzo, can you put the first slide, the next slide?
Yes.
Okay. Le Comptoir des Ressources Créatives is not a co-working space in a common sense. It's more a platform facilitating the professionalization of designers and craftsmen in their activities, in their business. The motto, the slogan of the Comptoir des Ressources Créatives is by designers for designers, which is fundamentally the principle of cooperative model, by users for users. And there are no selection process at the entry of this space. There are no committee to admit people. It's the applicant who decide if he recognizes himself in the definition of what is considered as a creator in French, as a designer. And the definition is people, a designer, craftsman, person who makes a living from their creative work or aspires to do so. And so in the mission facilitating professionalization, the first mean to achieve the mission is not collaboration, but more mutualization of space and of equipment. The notion of equipment is has to be considered as in a broad way. For example, the cooperative acquired a concert hall for its musicians, so it has to be considered as a large concept. And the principles that the sharing of common space and machines, also equipments, stimulate exchanges, emulation, peer learning and collaboration, or even cooperation. About it was the mission. Maybe the slide after, Lorenzo. Yes, that's okay. Yes, okay. About the space, so it's an industrial building of 1,500 square meters, so it's quite big, divided into 23, I think 23 clusters on 2 levels. Each cluster is dedicated to a material, for example, wood, iron, ceramic, fabric, etc. And so the space at the beginning was almost empty and rough, and each cluster, each workshop is self-built by the users according to their needs and as they will. That is a specificality. About the support process, Lorenzo, if you can pass the next slide after. Well, I'm sorry, it's in French, but I will explain in English. About the process, so the structure, the comptoir, helps the emergence of shared diagnosis and search solution based on the needs identified. There are different points to take in consideration. First one is before arrive to the diagnosis, you have to get a critical size of users who share the same need, the same problematic. And that's the way to objectify the demand. After all different possibilities, or the comptoir refer to existing services, partners in the environment. If the solution, if the service doesn't exist, le comptoir will create a new service with a view to it becoming autonomous. It's not the objective to get to keep this service inside the comptoir, but to spread the service. That's the support. And the service is not about making business plan or financial plan or but it's more about concrete, practical experimentation and following and growing up the project from the reality. It's a typical way to coach the project and coach the entrepreneur. Yes. Yes. About the ambitions of this model, this project, because at the beginning the first space were in Liège, one space. Now there are 3 shared spaces in Liège, and the cooperative has the possibility to invest in new buildings if opportunities arise, knowing that there's a waiting list, a big waiting list, and that there is a strong demand from potential users. But also now the model has now spread to Charleroi, another city in Wallonia, to Mons, to Verviers, and to Namur. And we see that the comptoir spaces are often located in poor and declining neighborhoods, and that they have a visible positive impact on the surrounding areas. So they are strongly connected to the development of territories, and that's also a positive effect of the model of the project. And now that I have presented le comptoir des ressources créatives, I would like to present some lesson that I presented in the introduction of the workshop we made in the afternoon. And this lesson come from, for sure, the Caracal Toolkit, and specifically the building community part, you know, the first one. And also from my experience in FEBECOP as coach for several projects in cooperative economy. Lorenzo, yes, that's it. So the first lesson is to have a complete view of the potential users and stakeholders who can be interested in the project, but according to the degree of interdependency between the project and the user. Because we all know that the cooperative model is based on a strong two-way interdependence between the whole and its components. So it's important to measure this interdependency level, and after to focus on the stakeholders and category of users who are characterized by the strongest level of interdependence with the cooperative, with the project. That's the first thing. Second one is to involve the users and stakeholders as soon as possible, because to keep users involved throughout the project design process and to ensure that they give an active participation and loyalty to the project, it's important to involve them from the beginning and to keep their needs at the center of the game every time. And the idea is certainly not to present them with I don't know how to say in English, un clé en main, projet clé en main, ready-made project with a nice business plan and just a contract to sign. But the most important thing is to listen to the future users over and over again. And this requires a great capacity for empathy in a way. That was my second advice. third one about the needs of users. Dario told it. It is important to take in consideration the needs of the users, but the challenge is to identify the real needs of the user, because human beings sometimes have difficulty in knowing their own needs. And also we often confuse need with solution. I can give an example. If a self-employed person expresses the need to be surrounded by a community of peers, we are talking about a solution. And behind this solution, there may be different needs. For example, it could be the need to get out of isolation and depression of being alone. It could be also the need to have a critical size in order to reach a larger market. So it's linked to a problem of economic viability. It could be also the need to reduce some costs, and therefore also a problem of economic viability. So yes, my advice for identifying the real needs is also thinking and speaking more in terms of problematic than in terms of needs, because the term problem is has more impact. Yes. And also to use the 5 whys technique. I guess you know this technique, but it's very powerful to in this kind of process. Fourth advice. Thank you. Yes, for sure, we are in a project speaking about collaboration, so we have to play the game of sharing, of collaboration, of putting some resources, but it's important to put the cursor of mutualization in the right place. For example, some cooperative projects aim to secure the income of self-employed members by pooling their income, but pooling income between freelancers is a complicated ambition that touches on a delicate subject, you can understand. So when we talk about mutualization, we have to be ambitious, but also move forward in stages, step by step. The fifth advice is about valuing the inputs of those who contribute to the project, who get involved themselves in the project. Yes, the recognition of the works of these contributors, it's a bit like put some gasoil in a car, and that allows a car to travel a long way. We see a lot of projects running out of stream because those who give energy are not rewarded and not recognized. It's really a question of recognition. The ideal is obviously to provide financial remuneration, but there are some alternatives where when it's not possible, we can think about compensation in kind, such a discounts, bonuses, etc. And we arrive to the last advice about the way to process is to test and to involve step by step, while keeping it important an eye every time on the economic balance of the project. Yes, because the economic balance must be an objective from the start, and the model must quickly allow those who contribute contribute to the to be paid, or at least have their work valued, as I said. And for me, it's more interesting to prototype the project in terms of finding a minimum viable product. Yes, that's it. And I think I arrived at the end of my presentation. Lorenzo, yes, it is. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
You are muted, Lorenzo.
Muted again. Okay, sorry. I was saying that you mentioned the participants yesterday were all representatives of some community, either of established collaborative spaces or emerging ones. Do you think this experience was interesting for them, and do you see a future follow-up for?
Yes, for sure. There were a demand actually, so we will program a next meeting. I don't know, in Liège or Brussels or in the Brabant Wallon, but there are several, because the concept of poor co-working without anything else than a desk and people working on computers is dying in Belgium, in other countries also, and there are more and more projects who wanted to mutualize some more than desks. And what was interesting, that the fact that there are some experienced projects as Le Comptoir who can share the experience with young projects. And yes, that was a nice dynamics yesterday between confirmed and experienced project and project in process without all this resource and experience. So yes, there will be a follow-up for sure.
It was also interesting to see from your presentation that the Comptoir is a quite complex reality. So they had to build the instruments they needed to go forward, and there is also public participation in their case. So do you think that the role of the public bodies is necessary for something like this? Because I also saw that they are expanding in other cities, but not necessarily in the biggest ones in Belgium, but more organically, I'd say.
At least at the beginning, because it's always the challenge to pay the people who support, who manage the place, who yes, support the entrepreneur. They have to be paid. And that's the most important cost in the business model. But for the rest, the costs of the building are often and every time self-supported by the contribution of the users. So yes, at the beginning, and if you grow up, you can reach a critical size. Who can
so you can make it sustainable.
Yes, we can
directly with the contributions.
Yes.
But what sounded interesting yesterday, seeing all the participants, is that they have pretty different projects on their hands, but they are all interested in this attitude to collaborate and share. So we will probably, if a network emerges from this for Belgium, it will be interesting to see also the interactions, because they do different things on a professional level, but also in terms of needs, they come from different needs. So it will also be interesting to see how they complement each other, especially if they are in the same area. So thanks a lot. ask you to keep us updated for the evolution of this, and maybe you'll be able to involve some of the SCC partners and associated partners in the activities if the network goes on. We are a bit late, but not that much. We recovered a bit of the time lost at the beginning with technicalities. So now it's time to relax a bit and have lunch. We are going to meet again at 2, again on this channel. So I will just keep the webconf up with a placeholder, but I think we will stop the streaming and restart it at 2. And this afternoon we will have, if they manage to join us, our partner from France, and then we will have a look at an extract of our final document and a moment to debate about the future. So enjoy your lunch and see you in an hour and a half. Bye, everyone. So welcome back, everyone. This is the afternoon session for the final event for the SCC project. We left this morning with the experiences, the local experiences for the local events in the partner countries. So this afternoon we will have another one. We will welcome SCC. Florent Bouche will talk with us about how it went with the local event in Paris. That was just this week. Then, wait, I can show you the program for the afternoon. Our partner from Quebec is not present, so that part we will skip. But we have we will have this moment regarding the event in Paris. Then we will have a look at the preview of our final report and the policy recommendations that are there. And then we will have a chat on future perspective for the collaborative spaces and also the link to education. And if someone has some questions and answers, we can finish with that. So let me take out the share. Okay, so Florent is with us. SCC, as I said this morning, is our partner in France, is a collaborative space focused on social and solidarity economy in Paris. They were funded by a cooperative of students, so the connection with education is there since the beginning, and the collaborative space does a lot of activity and also kind of pivoted on its usual activities during the COVID. So in our online event in June, we mentioned the activities that were done in support of the students with issues regarding the lockdown and other restrictive measures in Paris. But for today, we want to talk about how the local event went and how it worked for the local community. So welcome, Florent. Can you tell us more about that, how you organized it and who were the participants?
Yes, of course. So we organized this event it was 2 days ago, Tuesday for us. And so we invite the co-workers of SCC, so the people who are used to come every day in the place. And we wanted to use the toolkit and use all the interrogations that we had since 2 years now to think about SCC and to use the case of SCC and to rethink about the community, the place, the governance, and talked about that for a day. So we were like, I don't remember exactly how many people we are, like something like 8 or 9 persons. We had multiple organizations, some NGOs, associations. One of them is called Lundi Carotte. They publish every week a newsletter about environment and how can we consume differently today. They are free in the team. We had also a cooperative named Interligne, which is an organization work with at psychologist level. Sorry for the word. They help workers with psychological issues and school and students. They work a lot with university about that. And in the team, they are free as well. We have also a freelance who actually is starting his own company to develop an application to take photo and send photo to your friend or your family. And we have also another freelance where we worked in the sector of health, who is consultant for organizations about issues of health and everything. So we are like really different people. Some business, some associations, some cooperatives. So it was interesting to put all these different people together to talk about the thing, because they don't have the same issues, they don't have the same need. So we need to think about all that and to create a place which respects the need of everyone and every organization. So it's actually, when you manage a collaborative space, it's an issue. It's really complicated to develop something with a lot of different persons and different organizations. So it was the people who were there, and obviously the staff of SPAS, and some volunteers, also some workers work here. So we try to do that like this. Do you have questions about the people who were there?
Mostly, it would be interesting to know if they are usually involved in the internal governance, in the activities, and if they already had experience taking decisions for the space or contributing.
It depends. Some people, for example, Damien, who works in the health sector, is in our board. So he used to take decisions about the space with CEO, with every people who are in the board of SPAS. So yes, for him, is really implicated in our organizations. For other people, they are here for a long time, and they used to work with us to develop and think about the co-working. And for other one, like Lundi Carotte, the girls are really new here, and they never participate in a meeting like that since they are here with us. So we have really a lot of different.
You had a mix.
Exactly. And for us, it's important to for new people which just arrive at the co-working, we want him to he can participate to the governance. If you want to involve himself in the governance, in the decisions of the place, we need to give him the ability to do that. And for that, we need to give him the keys to can make some proposition. He can argue with us with some issue that we had. It's really important to involve him or her in the decisions that we make every day.
And regarding the workshop itself, what did you use from our materials?
Mostly we use the toolkit, and we use the toolkit online, and I used a lot the schema, the models in the website. You know, the models with the circle.
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about. So, and we start from it, and we try to use it to think about all the questions that we need to ask in our co-working. For example, we start the morning with the community. Okay, so now in Espace, we have a community. We have like 20 people. For some of them, they come every week. For some of them, they come every month. It depends. And the question was, how can we create a community with those 20 people? For some of them, there is a real community. They see each other every day. They take a class together. They come out together sometimes. So, but for other people, they come just one time for working and not really for socialize themselves with the rest of the group. So, how can we create something? We want to involve everyone. So it was the first question: how can we do that? And the second one for us, we come after 2 years of COVID, and so the co-working, like all the co-working space, was almost shut down for 1 year there. So how after 2 years we can recreate something, recreate a community, which has disappeared for almost 1 year, 1 year and a half. And the third part, it was like, for now, a lot of new people are interested with our co-working. So it's possible for the next few months that we have a lot of more people that we had in the past. So how can we welcome them? How can we involve them in the old people who are here for a long time? So it was all the question that we had in the toolkit, and we talked about it since 2 years in the SCC program. And I really wanted to share all the things and all the questions that we asked in our study group, and put them with our community and with the co-worker of Espace.
Okay, so the new persons that will join your community, you already know which kind of people are interested in coming in Espace, or you don't know what to expect?
For example, it depends of the profile of the person. Some people, they really want to be here because we are a co-working space specialized in the social economy. So some associations, some cooperatives, they want to be here, especially for that.
Okay.
But some other people, they want to be here because it's really near from their home, as they don't care at all about the social economy. From other people, they want to be here because we are really cheap comparing to other collaborative space in Paris, and they want to be here only for the price. And we took the choice like 1 year, 2 years ago, to welcome everyone. We know we don't want to close the door to people who are not in the social economy. We want to mix the public, and we want to talk about social economy with people where they never heard about that in the past. So how can we welcome them? How can we have a community where the social economy doesn't disappear? Because if a lot of people, if too many people are not from social economy, the issue is that at one point the social economy disappear of identity of our community. So we talked about that. We took the decision that for now, is it okay because we have a good balance between organizations from social economy and other organizations, and we need to be really careful about the people who are coming in the next week. For now, it's okay because it's a good balance, like I said, between the two organizations, but we need to be careful about that.
And you think that with the new composition of the community, you will again use these tools and continue to try and make the community evolve with the tools we developed?
Yes, I think so, because for me, the interest of the tool is not about the answer that it gives. It's about the questions that it gives. So we had a lot of questions with tools, and the good point is to put those questions into our community and see what answer can we bring together, what answer can we make together. So that was really interesting for that. So if the toolkit stays with all these questions that we put in it, yes, I think I can use it in 1 year with the new people who will be there. We'll see.
Good, interesting. And what's the situation now in Paris with all the limitations? So how the co-working and the collaborative space works at the moment?
It's really better. Honestly, you heard of the pass sanitary pass in France, I think. So for 1 year, maybe from the beginning of the COVID, I think a lot of people, they didn't want to register themselves in a collaborative space. They didn't want to book a room for a meeting if after 2 weeks it's closed. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of people wanted to come here, but they were afraid of not be able to at the last moment. So honestly, we were like, it was pretty empty for 2 years. But now I think a lot of people, I don't know what will happen in the future, in the next few months or for a few weeks in Paris, but we have the feeling that we will not be locked down again. You know what I mean? So we see the co-workers coming back. We see the organization, the businesses coming back to organize some meeting in a place. We see the user of the bar coming back as well to take a drink, to make parties. So the start slowly going back. Now, I don't know, maybe in 2, 3, 1 month, all will be closed again. But for now, I really have the feeling that for some people, the lockdown are behind us. Okay. And it's the feeling that we have in Paris right now. I don't know if it's good, but
no,
we take it from.
Yeah, but not only as a collaborative space, but also as a tiers-lieu in general. So people meet more and come more. So they get out of isolation and come back to the community.
Okay.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Just
yeah.
to finish something,
Yeah.
So during this day we talked about the community, but we also use the other part of the toolkit. We use also also part about the services, services inside of the collaborative space. There we talked about the governance. How can we make decisions together? So we really use the toolkit in all these aspects.
And with the service design, did you discover something new that it's going to be implemented in the space, or some kind of need where you have to invent the service, or?
Not so much, not new services, because I think we have a lot of things right now at our co-workers now. They don't really need a new thing, but we think about the use of the services, and we think about the use of the space, because until now in Espace we wanted to not formalize space and the use and the using of the services. We didn't want to formalize it so much. We wanted to have free space and everyone can do what they can, what they want, and no really restrictions. But with more people, we need to put some rules. Obviously, for example, if we have a room where you can phone or have a phone call or have a Zoom meeting, if one guy takes a room all the day, it will be complicated for the rest of the group. So, but we didn't have rules about it. So we need to put some rules, but if we have too much rules, it begins to be too slow, and it was really for me interesting to think about the balance between rules and no rules, formalized use of the space and not formalized. You know what I mean?
Interesting. Yeah, it is especially interesting that each of the recounts we had today of local events, you all used the toolkit, and you all used the toolkit in a different way with different results. So I think it shows that it's a tool for everyone, and the good thing is that it adapts to what you need. Plus, it has so much stuff in it that it will take a lot of time to explore everything we collected there.
Yes, and I don't know if it's a link between the rest of the meeting of today, but for me, which was interesting, it was like I have the experience of all the discussions that we had together since 2 years. So, and it was that was for me really interesting. And if a new group with other people which they never heard of the toolkit before, they never participate at it, I think it can be interesting for them to have one of us, me, you, Lorenzo, Francois, all the people who participate at the projects since 2 years, to help them to use the toolkit and to ask good questions.
Thank you. It was nice to hear about the experience in Paris. And yeah, I agree that all the work we did in this period makes us particularly interested in what we did, but it is a tool that speaks to a lot of other people. So I hope that also other communities will just pick it up. A lot of downloads happened since we published it. So we also have this feedback form on the website, and anyone that uses it or at least reads it, please, you're very welcome if you give us some kind of feedback, because it's always nice to hear an external perspective and not only ours that we worked on it directly, so we already know it. So next step for this afternoon, I will put the presentation again, is to have a look at the work we did. The final document, the final report is coordinated by Cooperatives Europe. It wasn't the easiest of works because it changed form quite a bit since how it was intended at the beginning. So I'll start talking about that, and then we will end with the recommendations, at least an extract of the recommendations. So to give an introduction, this final report will be published in the next few days. It was designed when we designed the project. So the SCC application for the project was written during 2017 and 2018, so 2018. And then the project started in September in 2018. So this is a very different time than what we're living now. So we didn't expect any of the extreme complications that we had to face. And especially we didn't expect that we were going to have most of the partners of the project in very difficult situations professionally and also personally, because managing co-working and collaborative spaces and also communities during the outbreak of COVID was a nightmare, and no one was prepared. So to give you just a recap of the timing, because now it seems like all our life has always been in this situation, but actually this project started in September 2018. Then we had a year of normality, essentially. Then in December 2019, there was the outbreak in China, and by March, the pandemic arrived in Europe. So at that point, the first country to register serious numbers for the infections was Italy. Then it was followed by France and Spain. And all these three countries are in our partnership. So we had a group where some of the partners were hit pretty hard and pretty fast by the new situation. So we published the Caracal Toolkit just before the lockdowns spread all over Europe, and then we had to shift our focus in the project, and in the end we had to suspend the project for a while at the beginning of this year, to let the partners focus on their own activities that were, with some effort, they were restarting, especially the collaborative spaces that, as Florent was saying before, were being closed for more than 1 year or changed their activities. So it was difficult to restart. We were all hoping that after last Christmas, things were going to be back to normal, but that wasn't the case. So we worked in a different way, and then we decided to redesign this final output, taking into consideration this new context. And since it changed a lot, the context changed, so probably the role of collaborative spaces and of innovation communities will also change. At the moment, actually, it is going towards trends that we were already considering before. But there are also many new trends that could not be foreseen. One example is the vast spread of remote work and online digital work. Essentially, every worker that could work from home did that. A lot of workers that couldn't telework were furloughed, or they suspended their work or changed it, or were simply fired. So it was very difficult to foresee something like that. And when we were reasoning before all this crisis about the future of work, we always talked about more flexible, more smart working, but no one ever thought about getting the whole population and putting them on remote work at the same time, at the same moment. And this also affected the education sector, because the enforcement of distance and online learning was done for most levels of education, especially the higher education, like university, and most secondary schools were just closed, with people studying at home and following courses. And that also was a very sudden change, and it wasn't foreseen until 2 years ago. Even if e-learning was very common in many fields, it was intended as something fundamentally different than classroom teaching. But what we saw in the last year is that when teachers and educators had to adapt fast, in many cases they just broadcast their lessons. So students got used at following a teacher in a different place in front of a screen. And this was essentially a taboo before. No one wanted e-learning to be this, just recording the teacher. But then, even if other platforms are available, other formats are available, doing it in a hurry and in emergency, in many cases, they just transposed online what they do usually in the classroom. So we didn't expect that, and no one expected that. It is a crisis not like the previous ones. So with the usual optimism of cooperators, we think that from this crisis we could have a more sustainable economic recovery compared to previous crises, because in this case it was the habits of people that changed, and we can keep, or we can try to keep the good of the new habits, and avoid what was the rebound effect of the previous recovery. So when the financial crisis in 2008 hit hard the American and then later the European economy, then in a couple of years all the carbon footprint and the effect on environment went up again. So the 2010s were a trend up in terms of pollution and in terms of bad air quality and a lot of other indicators. And this is was connected to the economic growth after the financial crisis and the economic crisis. What could happen differently this time, hopefully, is that some of the advantages that we got from the remote work, from the whole reduction of individual transport, the reduction of air transit and other industries, could last more, hopefully, because we can change our habits. There are a lot of initiatives already in place. Many companies around the world are evaluating how much the presence in office is needed. So a lot of people after this crisis will probably not come back to the office full time. There will be blended a lot of blended schedules, with people staying at home some days and going to work others, and the same could apply to other habits and other aspects of life. One interesting aspect that we are including in this final document is also connected to energy consumption. The consumption of electricity during the lockdowns were studied. The difficult part of this document is also that many of the studies about some aspects of the lockdowns or of the changes of these last 2 years happened only are being published only in this period. So we still have not so many data to work on. But for example, regarding the electricity consumption, there is a Polish study that was done to understand how much of the electricity that was consumed by households with people confined working at home, how much it was in comparison with the previous situation with offices and transports. And apparently the request for energy is essentially the same. So apparently what changed was the timing of the requests. So houses were much more hungry of energy during the day than usual, because obviously people were at home. But the peak requests were not higher. So in this case, the infrastructure could support, without special upgrades, could support the remote work, even in the long term. So this is already something that is interesting to know, because it opens some possibilities. And in our policy recommendations, we also are including some thoughts on energy and environment. So getting down to that, as I said, we are shifting part of our attention, of our focus. So we are focusing more on the role of collaborative spaces in the community around them, and how they can contribute to this new society of the recovery. One aspect to take into consideration that could be a policy recommendation for decision makers is to tackle the digital divide and offer digital services and virtual services to complement collaborative spaces. So if the future of collaborative spaces is to have people that don't necessarily work every day in the same setting, but if they become coming to the collaborative space and being in that kind of community and setting becomes part of of a schedule that is more varied, when some days you are in your company office, some days you're at home, some days you are in the collaborative space. It is important that people are able to work in a smooth way. They don't have to take on themselves all the difficulties of changing settings, changing place, and ways of work. So it would be good to have some support to especially avoid problems connected to the digital divide. And in this, the collaborative spaces can be valorized, because if you have some areas in cities or outside that are underserved in terms of digital infrastructures for connection, for bandwidth, you can use it would be possible to use the collaborative spaces as hubs where people can access more in a more stable way, good bandwidth, or to have more digital tools available. And this could be something that public bodies or local authorities or even groups of citizens could support. Another aspect that falls into our recommendations is to integrate collaborative spaces in energy policies. So if we envision a future where collaborative spaces are present in different areas of the cities and they contribute to the local community, in this role, the physical space is very important. And since you have a physical space, you can work on it also in terms of carbon footprint. You can think of prosumer schemes, so they could produce energy, for example, with the photovoltaic panels, with the wind turbines, or other solutions depending on the place where they are and the external conditions. But a collaborative space could be a good start to have more sustainable energy produced in the city, or anyway in the local area. And also having the right incentives could help new co-working spaces or collaborative spaces or existing ones to adapt to better standards, which many times these kind of incentives are either reserved for private when they renovate houses, or for industries. So in the case of collaborative spaces, it would be good to have something dedicated. Also, one possibility could be, if we think in a cooperative way, to build energy cooperatives that include the production of energy in the collaborative space and in the houses of the members that participate there. So you could have a network of prosumers that can have the right scheme to mix production and consume of energy. Another interesting aspect that we explored a bit in other discussions during these two sessions is the direct participation of public employees in collaborative spaces. So there are some experiences that are being put forward for this at the moment. For example, an interesting initiative that is going to be included in the COVID relief funds, so Next Generation EU, by the municipality of Milan in Italy, is what they are calling at the moment near working. So they are thinking to change the concept of smart working, which in Italy in this last couple of years was also the name used for the home work and remote work. So they want to experiment collaboration with co-working and collaborative spaces, putting public employees that were working at home into these spaces, not only to work there, so allowing them to work in a place different than their home, but also being there to provide services to the citizens. So you could have someone that works, I don't know, for the population registry in the commune, in the municipality. So you have this person that goes to work to a nearby co-working, and there he or she is available to meet with citizens that then can, for example, ask for their identity card. So at that point, both the worker and the other citizen have to move much less, and they have a new service in their neighborhood that makes it life easier for the citizen and for the worker. This obviously would work particularly well also for the collaborative spaces if the relationship with the public body, especially local public bodies, was stable. So if you had a form of convention or understanding or contract between the co-working space or the collaborative space or a network of them with an institution that then will provide also some economic support that is stable because they are buying the services of the space to use it for public purposes. Then, based on this, we can go at the next step. So this is particularly interesting for those that followed our public event in June. This was included in the research, the sentiment analysis research done on social media by Condiviso. They were talking about how co-working, and in that case also co-living, was talked about during the lockdowns, because these are topics that were explored by different people, and they came up into discussions and debate during that period. One very interesting concept that we can work on is polycentric cities and the concept of proximity. In the case of Paris, this is part of the 15-minute city initiative, which is put forward by the mayor, but it's also present in a lot of other cities with other names, like the super blocks in Barcelona, or this initiative about Milan that is going to go forward. So the idea is to have not only a city like it was intended a century ago, with a center and a periphery, but to be able as a citizen to access all the fundamental services and possibly also entertainment and other activities for your everyday life within 15 minutes by foot around your house. So a group of blocks of houses where every need of the citizens is covered, making it less reasonable to use a car in cities, making it easier for families to bring children to their activities, and making it easier for elder people to access services, and also for disabled to be on the same level of other citizens. So this idea of proximity works very well with the concept of collaborative spaces, because collaborative spaces could host multiple services responding to needs of the local community in different ways, and could also represent a way for employment for local people that don't have to move as much, because they can also find their place of work. So our recommendations on this topic, this is just a preview, but on this topic, we can talk about integrating collaborative spaces in urban planning, involving local innovation communities and supporting the emergence of new ones. So ideally, especially for big cities, but that also applies to small cities or rural areas, when a new planning for the urban tissue is done, it would be good to collect information and start from what is already there and valorize the local initiatives. Another aspect is to engage local population with the surveys and sessions to talk with the population, and also collect data, because most of these initiatives work if there is a clear strategy behind that. So you have to really understand the local needs. You can't create a series of modules that are always the same and then call that city. You have to adapt to the needs of the people that actually live in an area to make it like a polycentric city where everyone can find what they need, because not everyone needs the same thing. And not every area is the same as another. And also they are not uniform. So collecting data and defining what goes where and what can be multifunctional and where is a complicated process, but this could be done with a mix of community efforts and public authorities. Then the last one is connected to what we said all the time in this project, but also in general for cooperatives. The recommendation is to promote networking and exchange of best practices between neighborhoods that are at different stages of urban transformation. So the thing is that we can't allow to have like model cities or a neighborhood, an experimental neighborhood where everything works and the rest of the city stays behind. If the idea is to involve collaborative spaces and local communities and innovation communities in the development of a new way of urban living, what you need is to involve the whole of the city. And if you have to choose an area to start, you should start from the area where the services are lacking, where you can maximize the impact of this kind of regeneration. Problem is that if you do it in the wrong way, the only outcome of this is what is called gentrification. So you manage to make a neighborhood much better than it was before, then the housing prices go up and richer people move in. What you should do ideally is involve the local communities, but also the local businesses, so that a small shop that is already in a street can still be there and maybe offer new things, because the inhabitants also need that. And include lower income areas in these initiatives also means that you can involve a mix of for-profit and not-for-profit initiatives. And the example of collaborative spaces, again, is very evident here. Many of the services that are offered by collaborative spaces are not necessarily paid. They are done by the community for the community. So if you get involved, and even if you're a neighbor, you can get the advantages of having a co-working space near you, a collaborative space. What can make a difference in this case is also the density of those spaces. So we have to think of the collaborative spaces as Espace is already doing as a tiers-lieu. So you have to think of the space as a sort of beacon in the city where people are attracted to, and they enter the community with their needs and try to find together an answer. If the answer is not in the collaborative space, it could be nearby, or it could be a new initiative, but at least you have a place where you can meet someone else and go in that direction. If the support by the policymakers was there, ideally collaborative spaces could also easily incubate new initiatives or redirect to the right funds or the right support. And most of our communities, especially in cities, could grow organically without necessarily much support after that. There are also other examples, especially in the cooperative movement, of this kind of initiatives. There are community cooperatives, citizen cooperatives. There's a lot of different initiatives that could be integrated, but the kind of physical presence that a collaborative space can provide is particularly interesting. So we can think for the future of having this model of space and this model of community much more spread than it is now, and not only connected to work, but in general to the life of the neighborhoods. So this is a preview of what we are going to publish. There's much more, and there's a lot of topics we are trying to cover. Plus, the report itself will also include the reports from the local events, so some feedback from what we did in the different participating countries. And this will also be interesting for us for covering some aspects of the toolkit and see what is more used and what less. So we will also include the feedback that comes from the website, from the feedback form we have connected to the toolkit. Okay, that was long. Now we planned for a chat about the future, but we don't have many people with us anymore. So anyway, it's afternoon in August, so I understand those that are not with us at the moment. My proposal at this point is just to share some thoughts with you that are still with us, and if someone has a question, we can answer, and then we can also close a bit earlier than expected, if that's okay with you. So now I'll invite Francois and Florent to tell us if they have something to add, also on the perspectives that I was talking about regarding the recommendations. And if you think that in the near future, the collaborative spaces will have actually a significant role, and what you think could be also the interaction with education, that is something that we left a bit on the side in the last part of the project, because also universities and education were not in presence for nearly 2 years. So all the projects that were connected to opening co-working spaces or collaborative spaces for students, and all the more open settings for classrooms and education were completely on hold, so we don't have much news on that. You want to start, Francois? You should unmute. Wait.
Yes, one point you said was about making some public services in co-working spaces in order to propose some public service like population registration, and it makes me think about the necessity of phygital. You know what is phygital, mixed between physical and digital, because yes, we have seen the advantages of digitalization of our work in the two past years, but we also have seen the limits. And for me, that's the point, to keep the just balance between physical and digital. But physical is not possible in so large group and in the same way than before. So for me, the future is a smaller group, smaller concerts, smaller meetings, but more a kind of demultiplication of the event, maybe a kind of demultiplication of the classes, of the classroom. And for me, the co-working are an interesting resource to put this this kind of strategy in application. Yes. Co-working as a mean for digitalization of the economy and of education also. That's one point who comes to me now. Yes, but I will let the word to Florent maybe, and after there will something else will come in my mind. But for now.
Thank you, François. I think it's really hard to talk about the future of collaborative space, especially in a large area like Europe. With the COVID, I have, for me personally, everything about the future of collaborative space. It will be the new way to work tomorrow. In 5 years, people will not use an office anymore. They use only collaborative space. So it's really hard to know what is going to happen with the collaborative space. For me, I know it's clear that we live a time where work is changing, where young people like us here, we want to work differently that our parents work it, and we want a place where we're working that it's not just work. It's also as well some connection with, like you said, Lorenzo, some local businesses, some people, some social businesses, some association, and everything. And for us, the collaborative space is the real question is how can we create those links? How can we create those links between those needs and all the people which are around us? And I don't have really an answer about it, because for me, I work in a collaborative space. I used to work with a lot of collaborative space in Paris, and I really don't know what's going to happen for us in 2 years. Will be the businesses will there begins to stop the offices and send their workers in collaborative space into, oh, I don't know. We said that like 1 year ago, and now in September, it seems to be like workers going back to work and not so much at home. There is a mix, but we don't know how can we work. Who it will be going to happen in the next 6 months? We don't know. And so it's important, and it's why I think it's important to keep working about what we did since 2 or 3 years. It's important to keep the fact that we need to change anytime. So the change is not right now. It's not 1 year ago. It's not in 1 year. It's at every moment we need to change, and we need to adapt a strategy with the time, with the people, and with the environment. And it changed all the time. For us, Espace 1 year, 2 years ago, it was not the same Espace that we have here right now. And I really think that Espace in 2 years, it will be not the same space that we have right now. How can we do that? What is the future? I really don't know, but we need to have the tools, we need to have the skills, and we need to have the experience to think the changes and to be leader of the changes, I don't know the word in English, you know, like when you are forced to do something, when you take it, but it's not what you want to do. You're just behind the thing, and we need not to do that. We really to go forward. So
you need to be proactive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah,
I'm not clear because I don't know what's going to happen. I think it's really not clear what I'm saying right now, but it's
your initial question on how to involve the community around the co-working space is actually pretty interesting, and it's something that we didn't focus on because the focus of the project was different at the beginning. But now that we are thinking about how the co-working space fit, or the collaborative space fit in the whole context around, actually it would be interesting to inspect that, to do some kind of research regarding how the neighborhood around a co-working space or a collaborative space or a platform like CRC in Liège has, what kind of impact it has on the local neighborhood, if they are aware of the impact, if it fits with what is there. And also one other aspect interesting could be to see at the moment before, after some things, but before all the changes that we were putting in perspective, what is the participation? So if people move a lot to go to co-working spaces, or if they choose those that are near to them, because now, for example, in the recommendations, I was referencing all these new theories about proximity, which are not that new. People before cars, they just lived in smaller areas in their everyday life. It's just that we are used to go around much more, but it's only natural if you are on foot to limit your radius. But maybe people prefer a place to live, but also they like a collaborative space or a community pretty far away, and they commute because they are attracted to the community. It would be something that at least it's worth to investigate, to see if the answer that we are thinking about really applies, or it's only theoretical. What we know about the communities was put down in our first research and contributed to the IO3. But probably at this point, while those are very valid elements looking into the collaborative space, we will need something to look outside of the collaborative spaces to have a vision for the future. At the same time, I think now we are all prepared to any kind of surprise. So I agree that looking at the future with this perspective at this point, it's much more difficult than before. I remember the debates in 2018 about the future of work. There were a lot of scholars and researchers with many certainties, and I'm sure that they are not that certain about anything anymore. So everything will change, but this is our contribution to the debate at the moment.
And another thing I see is another recommendation is do not forget the countryside, because there's more and more people from the cities who want, not every day, but sometimes go in a kind of mise au vert in French, to exit from the city, and especially with the COVID, with the lockdown, it's a necessity now to be able to go out of the city. One thing. The other thing is for the people working in the countryside, it's also a necessity to break the isolation of this kind of housing and neighborhood. And till now, it doesn't exist co-working in the countryside. At least in Belgium, I don't know really.
There are a few around Europe, but it's not that common. Some rural co-working spaces are there, and also in that case, many times there is some kind of support by public funding. So that would also be interesting to.
And you can also imagine a connectivity between rural activities, farming and so on, and people coming in the countryside from the city. Just, I don't know, for one day, maybe in the morning they work with a farmer, and in the afternoon they work at their own business.
Yeah,
the mixity of activities is the basic trends of the economy for me.
Yeah, also the villages or rural settings are also interesting in terms of digital divide. So many houses are not that well connected or not connected at all. So if you had like a collaborative space in a village, it could also be the place where to invest on infrastructure and get good connection, and maybe also create some space for other activities that is not necessarily meetings and offices. But yeah, so I think that in a way we are talking about things that already existed but are not existing at the moment. So like public places used in a collaborative and communitarian way, I don't know, the community ovens that a lot of villages had, where everyone could cook their bread. That was the same thing. So you need access to a technology, and the technology is complicated and expensive for individual people. So you get it together. Something like this probably is also part of the future of collaborative spaces. And what unfortunately we couldn't explore today is the experience in Quebec, because when I was speaking with Agathe, she was telling me that they went around in some of the spaces in Quebec, and many of them are in small villages. So they have this more rural setting for some of the collaborative spaces. So this is interesting, and if we manage to finalize some content on that, we can include also that in the final report as an inspiration.
I just want to add something, Lorenzo, for the future. Since 3 years now, we focus a lot on the people who want to create a co-working space. And most of the time it was entrepreneurs or organization like small businesses who want to create their own collaborative space. But I have the feeling that in France, a lot of collaborative space are born from a wish of the politics, and as well now from the big enterprise. I don't know, some big company want to create a new office and implant inside the office a collaborative space. And we not think the toolkit really, I think for them. And there is a real need for me in the future to give them some skills, to give them some advices, to help them to think about the projects that they want and to choose the partners that they need for the project. You know what I mean? And maybe the future of the collaboration and of the things that we are doing here can be for those people, public administrations and big companies who want to create a collaborative space. They don't know how, they don't know with who, and a lot of the time they are just pick a guy and he creates something, but he knows some other collaborative space, but he don't know all the good experiences from all over Europe. And if one group, one toolkit can give him all the good advices, all the kits, all the toolkits that we have in Europe, okay, that thing, you can do it, it works, and it works very good. It works in England, in Italy, in Belgium, but this thing, this experience, usually it doesn't work. Because with those issues, with those, it's really complicated.
You can't do it on command. You need the people to be committed.
Yes, and honestly, I have the feeling that right now there is a big waste of public money to found some collaborative space, and they exist like for 2, 3, or 4 years, and after this time they just are completely closed because they don't have this experience and they don't have these tools.
Yeah. So one recommendation could be to put the funding and the support more in training on the topic than actually funding the initiative without preparation. That is a good suggestion, because anyway we have to also consider that we are talking about, when we talk about co-working, we are talking about something that at the beginning was a movement. So 15 years ago, when the co-working started, it was like a revolutionary idea. And some of the players that started, like Impact Hub, they started as an actual community wanting to get together, not only to have a discount on a desk. But now, if you talk about co-working, the big players are essentially real estate players. So they buy office blocks or buildings, they renovate and then rent. And the business plan is completely different than what we were talking about in our toolkit. So yes, training is essential in this, and also the motivation behind is essential in this, because if the objective is profit, that's not the case. Yeah.
Just for a question, is a co-working space is always a collaborative space? For me, I don't think so.
No. That's because also what we established in the first research, the fact that the degree of collaboration in a co-working space can change a lot. So I also think that the fact that we call collaborative spaces collaborative, it has to have a meaning. So also in policies, the public authorities should have a look at what you intend with your project, because if you propose co-working as a solution connected essentially to urban development in terms of buying, building, renovating, building, renting offices. That's not where the public money should go. It can be okay for private speculation, even if we can have discussions on the ethical side of it. But if you have the funds and you have the property, you can do it. But it's not something that should be supported, especially looking at the future of the city. That's not how it works. Also because those initiatives already failed. So we already know that some renovated neighborhoods 20 years ago are still back at square one, and they have to be regenerated again. Or in other places, they just became much more luxurious, so the population got thrown away, and there is another area that has the old problems just moved 2 kilometers south or north. So yeah, definitely the emphasis on the motivation behind the initiative is well put. So now we have also Peter Jan with us, our communication officer. I don't know if you got some questions, if someone is putting questions on the social media or not, because I'm not looking.
No, we didn't have any questions, but I had a question. I was wondering what the plans are for the project after this, for the toolkit specifically. Like, I think Dario talked about updating it. So where do you think lie possibilities in terms of updating toolkits? And also, just generally speaking, like, what's the future of the project?
I can tell you on my side what we think will continue to stay alive. So the website is going to be up at least for 5 years after the end of the project, because that's part of how the communication for Erasmus is managed, and also because we don't want to waste all the work we did. The toolkit is going to be probably updated because we want to keep a network alive with the partners, and adding also the associated partner, because this project mobilized also a lot of other spaces that were involved in the local events, that were involved in the research. So the toolkit should be used by as many people as possible, and based on the feedback and based on the new evidence or in the new tools that we can find, we will update it. The other part of the website that can be updated, and hopefully we will be able to do it, is the mapping of the university and education connected to collaborative spaces. In that case, we already plan to have a round of update once a year, to have a check of what are the new offer. In that case, for most of the initiatives, it's a bit easier because they have an annual offer of courses. So this part will definitely continue. On our side, as Cooperatives Europe, the recommendations and the conclusions of the project will be used to base some of our work in terms of advocacy at the European level, and we will communicate with our members in the different European countries to use those information, and if possible, to give a follow-up to the recommendations also on their national or regional level. The other aspect that I think is very interesting is that already in the 3 reports we had today on the local events, there are some local dynamics that are emerging. So I hope that the network of collaborative spaces in Belgium will grow, that ESPACE opening a new space or going forward with new strategies will also bring our results with them. And I'm sure that the fact that Condiviso and Databox in Genoa are working together with the university is a good dynamic that could lead to new initiatives. What I can't tell you is if we are going to have a SCC 2 as a project, because that's something that it's connected to the opportunities, and we also have to see if that is what we want to do, because Erasmus Plus projects are specifically connected to research and education. So if the topic will still fit, why not? We could go for another round, but definitely now we are focusing on closing this one and being sure that everything is correctly done. Francois and Florent, if you want to add something.
No, I agree with every subject, and yes, maybe let's fix a date in September, or I don't know when to close the debates and with everybody, because August, yes, it sure is not the right moment, but yeah, no, I'm okay with the conclusion.
I agree with Francois. I think I know that we need to close the thing between the end of August, because we had to with the delay of the commission, but I think it can be interesting in September or in October. We can see to meet with all the group and take the time to talk about the future, what we want to do to continue this project together, and what can we do about it.
For me, it should be interesting to have a follow-up of the project, because the future challenges are still not well defined, but sure that there will be next future big challenges for co-working space, and we are literally at a key moment. So let's have a bit of reflection to keep this project continuing and alive. Yes, for me, it's important not to close like this and without thinking about the possibility of second one Erasmus Plus, or I don't know.
Okay, so thanks to everyone. I think we can close the session. We have a bit more time to enjoy, not the sun,
Not the sun,
but maybe somewhere else. And thanks everyone for following us. And in any case, the good thing about digital events is that this becomes a video in a few minutes, so anyone can check it later. And we will use it also for further dissemination of the project. The SCC project will end next week, but as we were saying now, the network will still be very much alive. So you will have new news about all these topics and the cooperative take on collaborative spaces. Thanks a lot to everyone, and see you.
See you Monday.
Bye.
Bye.
See you
Good
Monday.
afternoon.
Good afternoon.